So, hello, everybody. Good morning for me. Maybe not for you. No, actually, we're on the same time zone because you're in
Yep.
Seattle and I'm just out of San Francisco. And my guest today is Michelle Bomberger. And I'm going to read you just a little bit about her, and she's going to tell you a lot more herself. Michelle Bomberger is the founder and the CEO of Equinox Business Law Group. Her experience as a business owner and an entrepreneur gives Michelle unique insights into the emotional and the practical aspects of owning a business and how important legal infrastructures is to grow and succeed. So I love this mix of the business, the emotional intelligence we'll talk about, and the law. She's the founder of Equinox on the premise that all businesses deserve to have a chief legal officer on their team that gives them the confidence to go boldly into the unknown. She holds an undergraduate degree in business from the University of Notre Dame and an MBA and law degrees from Northwestern. She currently serves as president of the Seattle chapter of Entrepreneurs Organization, where she's been a member for 5 years. Outside of her work, she enjoys travel, horseback riding, and spending time with her husband and young adult children. It says, I like that. We should never grow old, right?
That's right.
So, welcome, Michelle. Thanks
Thank you.
so,
Thank you for
so much.
having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So, on Under the Hood, we talk about patterns that are created in childhood impact us as grown-ups. And what I have done now, it's 3 years, is interview leaders who really kind of give us an insight of what is under the hood. You know, the effort, the values, the behaviors, the things that you've learned that have kind of enabled you to be successful as to where you are. So tell us a little bit about your family of origin, a little bit about your background, and how some of these things developed.
Yeah, so I was born in a unique place, the Panama Canal Zone.
Mm.
So that was, back before the U.S. turned over the canal to Panama in 1999. And it was a very small U.S. community of
Mm-hmm.
civilians, people who'd been there for up to 3 generations. Families went there to build the canal, and then a mix of the military folks who were around. There were
Mm-hmm.
about 10 military bases, and then the local Panamanian people. And so it was kind of a interesting melting pot of
Mm-hmm.
location to grow up. Very American community. Was the core, and then kind of surrounded by the unique setting of being in Panama. Um, Another unique element of my childhood was that both of my parents were American, moved to Panama in completely separate, unique situations. My father was originally stationed there with the U.S. Army and retired there, worked for Smithsonian, managing
Oh,
one of their
interesting.
tropical research islands because they have a huge tropical research presence there.
Mm.
And my mom and her best friend from nursing school picked up and moved to the Canal Zone to work for the U.S. government in the mid 60s. And so, again, sort of happenstance that we
Yeah.
both ended up there at the same time. Um, my father passed away when I was about a year old, so I grew up in a
Mm.
family with just my mom and me and my adopted sister. So again, very unique
Mm-hmm.
space of focus on women and single mom, and I think that was really powerful in my childhood. So I moved to
Mm.
the U.S. when I went to college after high school. So I was in Panama most of my
Wow.
younger life.
Yes. So definitely a unique upbringing. I would say for sure. So, from given that it was a household of women and your mother worked, I'm presuming, is that, am I correct? Yep,
She did. I don't think she
she
missed a
did.
day of work as long as I knew her.
Wow. So, what were some of the values that she brought you up with that, again, have stayed with you all these years?
Yeah, it's interesting because she passed away about 2 months ago now, and
Hmm,
so it's
that's
been
right.
very top of mind around those
Hmm.
things that you hear from other people in her life, and how you see someone differently than the kind of the experience you have with them directly.
Yes.
I would say, first and foremost, loyalty and loyalty
Hmm.
to family. I think is
Hmm.
something really foundational, and I think courage and strength. I mean,
Hmm.
she picked up in the mid 60s with her best friend and moved to, third world country, um, I don't see that sense of adventure in her later life. I see a lot more of that
Hmm.
commitment to family. But I would have loved to have seen her then. She and another friend picked up and went to the Soviet Union in the late 60s and early 70s. Just two young
Wow.
women picked up and went. So I think that sense of sort of adventure and courage has always been sort of, a core of who she is.
And how about you? Has that kind of translated? Are you a woman of adventure and courage? Certainly from from your bio, you are. How does it show up?
I think it shows up in a desire to just learn new things and be
Mhm.
around new people. So,
Mhm.
Entrepreneur Organization is a really good example of this. Um, by my involvement there, I've had a chance to learn leadership, leading peers specifically, which is a very different skill set than leading employees, and really sort of has been so valuable to all parts of my life. And the opportunity to travel because it is a global organization, and so by being in
Mhm.
leadership there are all kinds of places to be around different chapters, different people, and learn from them
Mhm.
as well. Um, and then we as a family have traveled a lot too. So I think it's something that is learned.
Yeah, yeah, that is a sense of adventure. Some people just don't really love traveling,
Yeah,
and some people really do. I'm one of
yeah,
those that really
yeah.
does.
And that
And
that being
learning.
said, yeah, neither one of us are risk takers, so we're not worth the jumping out of airplanes kind of adventurers.
So I call that extreme risk takers. You know, extreme
Right,
athletes, extreme, right? And somewhere perhaps in the middle. Obviously, as an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to take risks. Yes?
certainly.
Yep. So in some level, you are a risk taker,
Yes.
and maybe a little different way of thinking about it
Yeah.
because,
Well,
go ahead.
no, I say 100%. I mean, I think it's a level of comfort with uncertainty. I think
Mhm.
that is certainly there's risk there, but the ability to sit with uncertainty and to move forward and not be paralyzed by it or kind of held back by it, which again is very different than the extreme that you
Right.
mentioned.
But I think you put the nail on the head, that whole thing about uncertainty. And I was just sharing with a client that we have to move out of our house in 2 weeks, and we don't have the exact place that we're moving to yet. And so I have become very realistic about it. It's just, yes, there's a lot of uncertainty, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And that statement, we'll figure it out, right? How does that relate to you? How have you figured out things that were incredibly uncertain that you managed to kind of walk through them?
Yeah, I mean, I am maybe not an eternal optimist, but I'm certainly an optimist.
Mhm.
And so my instinct is it's going to be fine, right? That's sort of my,
Mhm.
my baseline instinct. And I think that is a valuable tool when you're working with teams and you're working with folks who maybe aren't as comfortable with the uncertainty.
Yes.
So the ability to sort of say, it's going to be fine, and here is what we're doing to give them that confidence
Hmm.
to move forward. Um, I think also, I had another thought there that you can edit out.
Take your time.
How does what was the question again?
How does it uncertainty, things that you have,
Yeah.
maybe even an experience that you've had that you've had to kind of walk through and maybe help other people? Hi, cutie.
Um, oh, I know what I was going to say. So I had an employee once who said my superpower was finding the side door. And what she
Mm-hmm.
meant by that is that I was the person that people would go to say, there's a way. There is a way.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be the front door, the back door, the window. There is a way. And so
Mm-hmm.
that, I think, has been something that I have sort of taken to heart and really thought about. And that comes from optimism, that comes from problem solving, that comes from experience as well. And
Yes.
so I think that's a great way to position that optimism in a more practical way.
Absolutely. And so how Michelle, do you, kind of weed that out with the people that you employ? How do you do that when you're interviewing? How do you do that? Because it's a skill, and it's in a way it's a natural propensity in a certain way that somebody has, and it's also learned.
Yes, and you add to that we're hiring lawyers, which is a whole nother element of risk aversion. So when we're looking to bring lawyers onto our team, we're looking for folks who have some business experience. Typically, they've either
Mm-hmm.
been in-house counsel, or they've maybe run their own business, or they've been a business manager before going to law school, something like that, where they can recognize that our clients are living in an entrepreneurial world. Our clients
Mm-hmm.
are, they tend to be more risk tolerant than the average person.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to show up to them in a way that meets them, not with risk, but meets them with their goals, their objectives, and where they're going, and then put the risk in that context. And
Mm-hmm.
so that experience that we look for when hiring folks is one piece, but then we've also done some training with the team to help them be more like coaches
Mm-hmm.
for those conversations with clients. So how are we understanding what the real issues are that the client is
Mm-hmm.
facing?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really easy to look at the legal issue and say yes, no, right, wrong, black, white.
Right, right, right,
Um,
right, right.
but ultimately, with the client, it tends to be, financial, emotional, personal. Um,
Yes.
it's their baby. And so we
Mm-hmm.
need to be there as part of the work that we do.
Yes. Do you think, I'm just going to throw this out. Do you think being a woman puts you in a position that might be different than a male counterpart?
I'm sure it does in some ways. I think what's important, whether this is, male or female or ambivalent, is the, sorry, one moment. I think what's most important is to be able to. I'm trying to. I had it there. I'm just trying to think of exactly how I wanted to frame that.
Take your time.
I know. I love the fact that you basically gave me permission to stop and think. It's super helpful.
Yeah.
Um, so I think what's most important here is the ability to show up in a way that is not knowing the answer.
Mm-hmm.
We are a resource, a tool set for our clients. We are not
Mm-hmm.
more knowledgeable. We are not smarter. We are not better. We are a resource. And I don't know if women show up differently than men do in that mindset. Um, but to me, being a peer of our clients, showing up as someone in the room who can provide perspective, is the most valuable thing that we can do.
Right.
And if
Right.
we're showing up as I went to law school and I know this stuff and I'm smarter and I'm ivory tower, that just, inhibits them from
Mm-hmm.
engaging and calling.
Right.
And then again, and we're not. I mean, factually, we're not. They know their business. They know their world. They know so
Mm-hmm.
much more than
Mm-hmm.
we do in their domains, and we are a tool set that supports that.
That's a really, really great way of getting around a difficult question. you know, and because really what you're describing, and you said it, you train your lawyers to be coaches in some way, shape, form, or another. And what a coach is able to do and what is trained to do is to be receptive and to listen and to reflect. And again, these are skills that are teachable. Um, and not everybody kind of goes in that direction, um, because some of the things, just when you talk about the business, the law and their businesses, that's kind of a lot of times the surface. and then what's really going on
Yeah.
underneath is something completely different. So being able to learn and to listen and to be able to bring that out in somebody and give them permission to be their expert, I think is a wonderful skill. It's not necessarily natural. I always say that good mental health is not a natural sport, it's a learned sport. And yes, you're
Yes.
shaking your head.
Yes. Yes.
So tell us on that subject, what have you done? Because I know that you have, to really help you hone these skills and to be able to be that kind of leader that you aspire to be. What are some of the things that you've put into that part of your training?
Yeah, I think it's taken me a long time, and
Mm-hmm.
I look back at the number of events, books, articles, workshops, all these things that I've invested in, and until I was disciplined enough to really apply them, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it was sort of just sitting in the back of my mind. And one of the really most notable moments is I was working with an executive coach, and team was kind of struggling. We were kind of losing people. We didn't have a strong culture. And she said, "Do you really want to lead this team?"
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have an immediate yes answer, which
Mm-hmm.
really was, you know, thought provoking and disturbing to some degree. But a lot of the work there, though, was really kind of parsing out the difference between leadership and management.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a great manager. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
great at accountability. I'm not great at process. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm an optimist, which all of those things together make it, I think, really difficult to hold people to
Mm-hmm.
the expectations of the environment and to be empathetic and to show up and really keep things on track. So that, I think, was really an aha moment for me
Mm-hmm.
in where I need to sit in the organization. Um, Alongside that, we were implementing the Entrepreneur Operating System, EOS. It's a pretty common framework for smaller companies. And one of the things that, one of the core elements of that is the relationship between what's called the visionary and the
Yes.
integrator.
Yes.
Um, and our coach, our facilitator for EOS, really sort of gave permission for me to not be good at those things.
Mm-hmm.
To recognize, the whole team to recognize that we can continue to try to shove Michelle as the founder into these holes that need to be filled, and she'll do them, but she's never going to elevate the team that way. That's not where
Mm-hmm.
she excels. And while we're still sort of working through some of those elements, the permission to not be good at it, even though that's not
Yes.
natural to me.
No,
um,
to most perfectionists and people who are really good at being in charge, it's not the
right.
easiest thing at all.
And then putting that integrator in place whose job it is to make sure that, we're moving Michelle out of those
Mm-hmm.
places that she's not great. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but we have a plan for that. And then me really living in that visionary role, which is
Right.
you know, let's take this thing forward, which is often a
Yes.
shiny object problem, and the
Yes.
integrator's
I,
job is
I
to hold those back a little bit.
You speak my language, Michelle. I've never been accused of that.
Yeah.
Once I named it, I got a little better at it. But I think really kind of people who see ideas and who are entrepreneurial and visionary, we see possibilities. This is possible, that's possible, that's possible, right? And they are, but maybe not in the order or the time that we would like to kind of go after them. I remember my ex-husband always had it was always saw the next opportunity, and as soon as one business wasn't going fast enough, he would start another one,
Yeah.
and then he would start
Yes.
another, and then he would start another one. So there's so many elements that you're bringing out and that we're talking about in terms of living with uncertainty, and so many issues of uh, honestly being in control, and what that looks like and what that doesn't look like. And one of the other things that I learned a long time ago in terms of when you say I'm not good at, I have learned to say my brain doesn't work that way,
Right.
as opposed to I'm not good at. I may not be good at it, but it's just a very, you know, kind of just one of those statements. Don't ask me to do this.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Well, and I think
but
that's the
ask me
hard
to do
part, right?
that.
Yeah. I
Right.
mean, we know we can do it, right?
Right.
We're
Right.
just not going to be the best at it. And I still say, I miss the days of conference rooms and whiteboards because I love a whiteboard. I really do. um, but another item that I think is related to this is I heard at a talk, a CEO shared this that he had on the wall, and I now have it on a post-it note, and it's we can blank if blank. And
Hmm.
I bring that to my team a lot because I am that visionary. I am the possibilities are endless.
Hmm.
And it's often well, we don't have, we can't, capacity, cash, resources, whatever the
Right.
reasonings are, which are completely valid. But if we flip that around a little bit, can we say
Yes.
what would make it possible, right?
Yes.
And I really like
Yes.
that statement for that reason because it puts well, maybe we can, you know.
Maybe we
So
can. Yes. Awesome. 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 So one of the other things that I always look at and ask people, I do a lot of work with conflict and conflict resolution and some of those subtle things that we don't necessarily, again, even talk about that are kind of going on underneath the surface, the way you described that one team that you were on. How do you deal with conflict within your company, your team? And what are the things that, well, let me ask that first, and then I'll ask you another question behind it.
I mean, my default is conflict avoidance, as I think many
Hmm.
of us, that's our default. And what I have learned, again, probably only in the last few years, that the listening part, the invitation to listening part, I think makes a huge difference. So,
Hmm.
I got a communication from somebody recently that had this, somewhat challenging question in it.
Hmm.
And, the instinct was just write an email back with like, here's why or here's what this is
Hmm.
about.
Hmm.
And that was the first iteration. And then after the second iteration, I said, email is not a great tool for these kinds of sensitive
Hmm.
conversations. Would you be open to hopping on a call?
Hmm.
And that, I think, just gives people the space to speak their mind, to feel and actually be heard,
Hmm.
whether they get the answer they want or whether things go their way. Collecting that information, as a leader, collecting that information gives more context, gives more of where someone's coming from than the words on the
Hmm.
paper ever
Right.
will. And so
And
moving from that email, yeah.
yeah, and I'll point out perhaps what was happening for you is you were uncomfortable with just writing the email. There was something perhaps that was going on with you that something didn't feel right. Is that true? Is that
I think it felt like a situation that we were never going to get to the root of it
hmm.
in a meaningful
Hmm.
way. And while this individual might have accepted iteration 3 of the explanation,
Hmm.
it wouldn't have gotten to a place of mutual understanding. Not
Hmm.
necessarily mutual agreement, but mutual
Right.
understanding.
Right.
Um,
Yes.
and so I think it was more that we could go around in circles on this for days. And someone said to me in a similar situation recently, do you want to be right or do you want to do what's right? And I think a lot of times in email,
Hmm.
there's the being right versus doing what's right. Looks like that locked up a little bit. Can you hear me?
I'm sort of losing you a little bit. Say it again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw that. I saw that.
Yep.
Um, I'll start that piece again. So I recently got some feedback from someone in a similar situation, a mentor type person, and we were talking about a difficult conversation, and he said to me, "Do you want to be right or do you want to do what's right?" And it's easy in
Hmm.
email
It's a nice
communications to try to be
distinction.
right.
Yes. Yeah. Nice distinction. So what are your biggest challenges, Michelle, given that you're growing and you're running this business and you've got people, and what are your biggest challenges?
Yeah, I think for the business, it is getting um, me out of that core sales and marketing function, right? So I've been the face of the
Hmm.
company for a long time, and I still can be that. However, we don't want it to be the Michelle Show. There's a reason why it's not the Bomberger Law Firm, because it's not about me. It's about building something that
Hmm.
can
Right.
sustain without me, and change hands easily in the future. So that is one of sort of the core, like, who sits in that seat and how do I get into that visionary role to do my
Hmm.
best work. And I think
Hmm.
as to do that, we have a lot of education as well for clients because our business model is different. How do we get the word out
Hmm.
there on how we work and have the right people being able to tell those stories? So that's, I think, on the business side. As I step into the president's role for Entrepreneurs Organization in Seattle, I'm now leading, a board of peers and a group of, over 150 member peers.
Hmm.
And so really kind of being very kind of thoughtful and aware of what my communication says and how
Hmm.
to meet everybody where they are, because everybody's membership is different, everyone's experience is different, and we have to ensure that the new member and the very tenured member and everybody in between are getting an experience that sits with our core values and really provides that member value.
Beautiful. That is a new big role.
It is a new big role.
And I have no doubt that you're going to be fantastic with it. And the reason I say that, do you want to know the reason I say that?
I would love to hear that.
Um, you have a very thoughtful way of approaching your work, your what you do, who you are. From what I'm hearing, this is our second conversation, and I I always say that everything starts from within. And as leaders, just like you said, there's things that we can do and we can learn and we can, kind of perform. But if the leader isn't really kind of one step ahead and really kind of knowing themselves really well, you can only take a person to a place that you have been. And so that's one of the pieces that I learned a long time ago. And so I could profess to do this and profess to do that. But if I haven't walked the walk, then it's kind of a lot of words and it's not embodied. So
That's true.
you bring your authenticity with you. So I know that yeah, go ahead. You take the last word, babe.
No, I was gonna say thank you so much, because I do think that, it's easy to look back and say, I wish I would have, I could have, um, things could have been faster, better, different, and yet where we are is where we are, and the learnings in the last 2 to 3 years have been probably more powerful and impactful because of where I am in my life, with my, children being out of the house, more opportunities to lean into this stuff. And so I
Yeah.
think, showing up with that honesty and that authenticity of where we've been and how easy it is to beat ourselves up for not doing better in the
Oh,
past
yes. Oh,
doesn't
yes.
buy us much. We're here where we are, right?
Exactly. So, how can people get in touch with you, Michelle? And we will have all the notes with us when we put this out, but how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'd be happy to be a resource for anyone if there's elements here that resonate. I am active on LinkedIn, so it's Michelle Bomberger. I think there's only one of them. And then our business's website is equinox.law.
Beautiful. Beautiful. As I said, we will have ways to get in touch with you. And I thank you so much for being my guest and being thoughtful and really a leader that I know has a lot of integrity. So we need more of you. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. It's been great talking.
For sure.